Welcome to the show, Comrade David.
Thank you.
Now to start over with our show, please tell us, how do we theorize the system of patriarchy, in regard to the post, apartheid era?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to observe practice. You can only theorize by observing, daily experiences, practical life, how people live their lives, and observing, the contradictions, the progress, the failures, and that kind of a thing. That's the one way of theorizing.
Yeah.
So the second way of theorizing is to imagine and reimagine society anew.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the ways in which you can theorize patriarchy.
Oh, great. You speak about the contradictions. Can you please just, sort of unpack what those contradictions are?
Well, patriarchy is one of the key and basic contradictions in our society. It's a system of privilege, and by privilege it simply means that a certain section of society will be excluded from access to resources, from access to levers of power, from access to decision making, and everything else. But most importantly, patriarchy has got a material basis from which it originates. So, there is an element of how the system decides how women must reproduce themselves, how they must live, through what means they must live. So in other words, it dispossesses women of their right to property, for instance. And so that is why, for instance, the kids are always told that you must inherit the surname of your father. Mm. And through that system, you also have the inheritance of property. And if you have a propertyless lot of women, then it means they have less means to reproduce their lives. Okay. And they remain oppressed and sidelined in society. And then the politics come as part of that when you have women dispossessed and displaced in the process of reproducing their lives meaningfully, then they also they also get sidelined in decision making and public life.
Okay.
And that's where the problem begins in terms of politics.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Then, with what you're saying, I want you to give a historical context to what you're saying, and as far as the past revolutions are concerned, because many a times women have been involved, in a whole different battles. They've waged different struggles, that speaks directly to the emancipation of women. I would give an example of your Alexandra Kollontai, who throughout the Soviet Union, the revolution was at the center of the struggle, but somehow because of the system itself and how she sort of related to other male comrades, she then became sidelined. And I also speak about Mama Winnie, for instance, our own, from the Congress movement. She was there, right there in front, battling the apartheid, regime, taking it head on. But somehow it seems there's a bit of a deliberate effort, even sometimes not the external forces, as you speak about the materialistic, side or aspect of things, where you could also, attribute patriarchy to the, capitalist mode of production and how, females become, subjugated and ultimately submit to males by the fact that they depend on males because males are the ones who are able to provide for them. Historically, that was what has been happening. But can we also speak about how, some of the progressive males, that we serve within these structures, that we politic with, the role that they play in subjugating these women? And I'm making reference to Mama Winnie because we know the history of Mama Winnie. We know the struggles that she's had to go through and some of the deliberate effort to actually sideline her from the very same organization that she helped to build.
Well, look, we are beneficiaries of patriarchy.
Yes, of course.
And I think that's the starting point. And what that means is that we are beneficiaries of privilege. And, privilege is not going to give up without a struggle. And that, the same goes for race, for class, for any other form of privilege in society. So, the agency of women is central. But men themselves can be and are part of the struggle to resolve the very same. It's not a linear.
Yes. In fact, I think that men should be part of, and parcel of, yes, the solution because, Bell Hooks speaks about how patriarchy does not have or knows no gender. And just to relate to what you say, I personally believe that, and obviously informed by some of the experiences that we've seen, that patriarchs themselves sometimes are actually victims of patriarchy. Do you agree?
Yes, it's all about socialization. To a greater extent. So, patriarchy will take this form of the psychological, the building the consciousness.
Yes.
How you socialize children, yes, into roles, yes, which is what I hate when I get to a shop and I want to buy my son some pink T-shirt and the woman says, "But you said it's a son." I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? But also, as I was saying, how resources are shared. It's also the way in which patriarchy, entrenches itself, sustains itself in society. Yes. So that happens. But I think that, yes, we have, a century ago, it was quite bad. But I think in this 21st century, in South Africa, certainly there has been strides that have been made in the political front. South Africa, in terms of just representation, South Africa is actually, in the SADC region, the last time I checked, is actually the best in terms of representation of women in the political sphere. We look at parliament, cabinet, and so on. We still have a long way to go, but also in the whole of the continent, South Africa does quite well. But what you need to have is also that it should not just be seen as mere empowerment. It should be a thoroughgoing program of emancipation.
That's correct.
Right?
And not empowerment for the few.
Yeah, empowerment is just one. It's part of it. The empowerment it's a smaller sphere of.
Okay, hold it right there. We'll be back. We'll continue with the conversation after the break.